Okay, section 1.7 talks about combining like terms. So in section 1.6 we were using distributive property and it was basically one-step problems. Now in 1.7 we're going to be talking about combining like terms. So if you notice here we have something we call like terms and unlike terms. The first column has like terms. The reason why these here are like terms is because both of those are x's. Both of these are xy's, and both of these are x squareds. The numbers in front are not relevant. They don't make that a like term or an unlike term. Okay. Over here, the reason these are unlike terms, one's an x and one's a y. One's an xy and one's an xz. One's an x squared and one is just an x. So in order for them to be like terms, they have to be exactly the same. Okay, they have to have the same letter, same variable, with the same exponent if they have an exponent. Okay. So let's take a look at our first problem. We're going to combine like terms. Negative 14x to the third minus 21x to the third. Well, one thing we know, we have x to the thirds. All we're doing is just combining the numbers in front. Think about it this way. I owe you $14. I borrow 21 more. Now I owe you 35. And so my answer is just negative 35x to the third. Okay. Looking at the next problem here, I see I have a whole lot of b's, but I want to make sure that I'm combining my like terms. So b to the third and b to the third, those are the ones I'm looking at. I have $2 and I owe you 9. I owe you 7, b to the third. I'm just going to bring along the 8b squared with it. It's part of my problem, but I can't combine it with this one here, so that's my final answer there. All right. The next one we have here is 5x minus 9b, minus 6x minus 5b. Okay, so let's go ahead and combine the ones we can combine. 5x and a minus 6x. I have $5, I owe you 6. Well, I owe you 1. A minus 9b and a minus 5b. I owe you $9, I borrow another 5. Now I owe you 14. All right, so coming along with the next problem here. Negative 1.9x minus 3.8x. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my calculator. I'll say, okay, let's clear that out. What is 1.9 minus 3.8 negative 1.9? So that's telling me that's the number in front of my x. Okay. So now let's do the b's. Let's clear this out. 2.4 2.4 negative minus 8.2 equals negative 10.6. Negative 10.6 with the letter B. Okay. All right. So the next problem we have here says 6x minus 5y minus 3y plus 7 minus 11x minus 5. Often people will ask, where do I start? It really doesn't matter. If you want to start because that's the first one you see, let's go ahead and start with that one. So we'll start with the x's. 6x minus 11x. I have $6. I owe you 11. So I owe you 5. Okay. Now let's deal with the y's. I owe you $5. I borrow 3 more, which tells me now I owe you 8. And then let's deal with our regular numbers. We have a positive 7 and a minus 5. So if I have 7 and I owe you 5, I'm still left with 2. Okay. All right. So this next problem here, I have to be, again, real careful to make sure I'm combining the ones that I can combine. So here's an AB and here's an AB. 7 plus 8 is 15 AB. Neither of these here are like terms with anything else. So I'm just going to write them down. Minus 3BC minus 12AC. Okay. All right. So now let's take a look at the next one here. Let's see, we got 3y squared minus 4y squared gives me a negative 1. y squared. We have a 9y and a minus 6y. So 9 minus 6 is positive 3. A minus 12 and a positive 2. So if I owed you $12 and I only gave you 2, I still owe you 10. Okay. So let's take a look here at this one. I'm going to think about that as a negative 1 RS and another negative 1 RS. So if I owe you $1, I borrow another $1, now I owe you 2 of them. Okay. A positive 10S and a positive 6S is a 16S. And then a positive 5R minus 2R is just a positive 3R. All right. So now let's start using our distributive property like we did in section 1.6. So we're going to multiply here. 8 times 3x is a 24x. 8 times 2y is a 16y. 4 times 3y is a 12y. 4 times 5x is a 20x. Okay, so now let's go ahead and combine. 24x minus 20x is a 4x. A minus 16y and a plus 12y is a minus 4y. Again, I stop at this point because one of them is an x and one of them is a y. All right. Let's take a look here. So again, we're going to multiply again. I'm going to do it like this because I don't have a whole lot of room up there. So 3a times 2a. Let's think about that for a minute. 3 times 2 is 6. A times a gives me a squared. Okay. 3a times 3b. Well, 3 times 3 is 9. A times b is just ab. Okay. Now let's be careful here because we're multiplying with a negative 3. So a negative 3 times a negative 5a is a positive 15a squared. A negative 3 times a positive 1 is still a negative 3ab. Okay, so now let's go ahead and combine our like terms. 6a squared and 15, 21a squared. A negative 9 and a negative 3, I owe you 9, I borrow 3 more. I now owe you 12. That looks a little messy, let's fix that. I owe you 12 AB. There we go. Good. Okay, so let's see if we can figure out this one. Again, I'm going to try to go as slow as I can. 1, 2. Negative 4 times 3. Negative 12 CD. Negative 4 times 2. Negative 8 C squared. Okay. 2c times 5d. Well, 2 times 5 is 10. C times d is just cd. Remember, I can think of this number here as a 1. 2 times 1 is 2. C times another c, c squared. Okay. Now let's combine our c squareds. Minus 8 minus 2, minus 10. Negative 12 and a positive 10 is a negative 2. Okay. The order in which you write these is not important. So if you ended up writing something like negative 2cd minus 10c squared, that's okay too. The order in which you put them is not important. What is important is that we have the right signs. So even say in this problem that we did up here, I could have written as my answer negative 12ab plus 21a squared. But that has to be a positive and that has to be a negative because that's how my signs are here. The order isn't important, but the signs are, okay? All right. So let's take a look at this last problem here. 5 times 6 is 30. Minus, remember that's a 1. 5 times 1x is a 5x. I'm multiplying by a negative 2. Negative 2 times 9 is a negative 18. Negative 2 times a negative 11 is a positive 22 with an x. Okay, so let's combine our x's. 22 minus 5 leaves me with 17. 30 minus 18 leaves me with 12. And that is section 1.7.